They say that growing older means growing wiser, and that may be true. But no one really prepares you for just how overwhelming healthcare can become, especially once you turn 60. Suddenly, it feels like every doctor visit comes with a new test, a new scan, a new concern you didn't even know you had. If you're a woman over 60, you may have already noticed this pattern. You walk in for a checkup, feeling fine, and walk out with a list of things to monitor, manage, or worry about. It's exhausting. And sometimes, it's confusing. Are all of these checkups truly necessary? Or are we being tested simply because of our age? In this video, I want to speak directly to you, not as a doctor, not as a health expert, but as someone who cares deeply about what it means to age with clarity, confidence, and control. Because after 60, your body deserves more than a one-size-fits-all approach. We're going to talk about 5 medical checkups that women over 60 should think twice about. Not because you should ignore your health, but because real self-care means understanding the full picture. That includes the risks, the benefits, and whether these tests are still right for you at this stage of life. Let us begin. 1. The hormone test that steals your peace. Let's start with something many women know all too well. Hormones. After menopause, your body changes. That much is clear. But somewhere along the way, we started to believe that every change needs to be measured, corrected, or medicated. And that's where things get tricky. Hormone testing after 60 has become more common than ever. You go in feeling tired or a little off, and suddenly you're being offered a full hormone panel. Estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, thyroid, cortisol. The numbers can feel overwhelming, and once the results come in, the pressure to fix them begins. You might hear things like, "Your estrogen is low for your age," or "We could start hormone replacement to balance things out." And while that might sound like a simple solution, the truth is more complicated, especially for women in their 60s and 70s. Here's what many doctors don't explain clearly. Hormone levels naturally shift as you age. They are not meant to stay the same as they were when you were 35. Low estrogen, for example, is normal after menopause. That doesn't always mean it needs to be fixed. And yet, many women are prescribed hormone therapy without fully understanding the risks. These medications can increase the chance of blood clots, stroke, breast cancer, or uterine complications, especially when taken long-term or without clear symptoms. Let me tell you about Mary, a 70-year-old retired nurse I met at a women's wellness event. She went in for a routine visit. No complaints, just wanted to check her numbers. Her doctor suggested hormone testing. The results showed slightly low estrogen, which is entirely expected at her age. But he recommended she start hormone therapy just to feel more balanced. Within 3 months, Mary had gained 12 pounds, was waking up drenched in sweat, and began experiencing mood swings she hadn't felt in decades. She told me, "I was fine before the test. Now I don't recognize myself." And that's the hard truth. Sometimes the test doesn't give you peace. It takes it away. Now, I'm not saying hormone therapy is never appropriate. For some women with severe symptoms, it can be life-changing. But blindly testing hormone levels without a clear reason can create problems where there were none. It can turn natural aging into a diagnosis, and that's something we all need to be cautious about. So ask yourself this: are you being treated for how you feel, or for what a number on a page says? Your emotions, your energy, your sleep, these are all valid experiences. They don't always need fixing. Sometimes they just need understanding. And here's the part no one tells you. Some of the things we label as symptoms, like deeper reflection, changing moods, or needing more rest, might not be signs of decline. They might be signs of growth, of wisdom, of entering a new, more thoughtful season of life. Coming up next, we'll talk about a test that promises to protect your bones, but might actually put your freedom at risk. Stay with me. 2. The bone density trap. If you're a woman over 60, chances are you've heard these words before. We should check your bones. Bone density scans, often called DEXA scans, are commonly recommended to screen for osteoporosis. The idea sounds logical. Check your bones before they break. But here's what most women aren't told. These tests, and what comes after them, can create more fear than benefit. Let me explain. The scan itself is simple. You lie down for a few minutes while a machine takes images of your spine and hips. Then you get a number, called a T-score. That number is supposed to tell you how strong or weak your bones are compared to a healthy young adult. Now, if your score is a little low, you might hear the word osteopenia. That's not osteoporosis. It just means your bones are slightly less dense than average. But for many women, that's enough to trigger anxiety. Suddenly, you're thinking about fractures, mold, and the fear of becoming dependent. Here's the thing. Osteopenia is incredibly common after 60. In fact, it's almost expected. But instead of being seen as a normal part of aging, it's often treated like a diagnosis. That's where the trap begins. And I'll be honest with you, this one hits close to home. A few years ago, after my own doctor suggested a bone scan, I agreed without really asking why. I was 66 at the time, still active, still gardening, walking my dog every morning. My scan came back showing mild osteopenia. And even though I had no pain, no symptoms, and no history of fractures, I remember the look on my doctor's face, like something had to be done. He handed me a prescription before I even had time to ask questions. I didn't start the medication. Something in my gut told me to wait. So I read, I researched, I spoke with other women, and what I discovered changed everything. I realized that this wasn't an emergency. It was just information. And how I responded to that information was still my choice. That personal moment, feeling like I had to fix something that didn't feel broken, stayed with me. And I've seen it happen to so many other women. Let me tell you about Dorothy. She's 71, active, eats well, and walks every day. She had a bone scan at her doctor's suggestion. The result? Mild osteopenia. No history of falls, no pain, no problems. Still, her doctor put her on medication immediately. Within months, Dorothy began having intense muscle pain. She stopped walking. She stopped gardening. Her body felt older than her spirit. She said to me, "I felt healthy before the scan. Now I feel like a patient." And that's exactly the issue. When we focus only on a number, we stop seeing the whole person. We stop asking the most important question: is this test, and what comes after it, actually helping? Sometimes, the best support for your bones isn't found in a prescription bottle. It's found in your kitchen, in your shoes, in your daily walk. Calcium, vitamin D, weight-bearing exercise, balance training. These are powerful, proven tools for bone health, especially when practiced consistently over time. So if your doctor recommends a bone scan, ask yourself, do I have a history of fractures? Am I at high risk? And if the result shows mild osteopenia, does it truly require medication? Or would lifestyle changes serve me better? Here's the hard truth. Stronger bones on paper don't always mean stronger bones in real life. And medications aren't always the safest first step. That day I left the clinic with a prescription I didn't take was the day I realized something powerful. Not every test deserves a reaction. Some results just need perspective. Coming up next, we'll talk about a test that promises to protect you from colon cancer, but might leave you in worse shape than where you started. You'll want to hear this one. 3. The colonoscopy that costs more than it finds. Let's talk about one of the most common and most trusted screenings in modern medicine, the colonoscopy. For years, we've been told it's essential, that it saves lives. And in many cases, it absolutely does, especially for people in their 50s or 60s with a strong family history of colon cancer or other symptoms. But after age 60, particularly for women who've had clean results in the past and aren't experiencing symptoms, this test deserves a second look. Here's why. Colonoscopy is not a minor procedure. It requires a full bowel cleanse, which can be extremely dehydrating, especially for older adults. It involves sedation, which stays in the body longer as we age. That can lead to confusion, dizziness, and a higher risk of falls. And of course, there's the test itself, placing a long scope deep into your colon, which in rare cases can cause bleeding or even a perforation. But sometimes, the greatest risk isn't the procedure. It's what happens afterward. Let me explain. Imagine this. You have a colonoscopy at 68. You're feeling fine, no symptoms. But during the test, they find a tiny polyp, completely harmless in most cases, and extremely slow growing. Still, the doctor says, we should remove it, just in case. That leads to another scope, maybe a biopsy. Now you're thinking about cancer, scheduling follow-ups, rearranging your life for a risk that might not even be real. That's how easily one test can snowball into months of stress, procedures, and worry. I've seen it firsthand with my neighbor Janice. Janice is 74, still sharp, still doing her own gardening, still walking her little pug every morning. She had a colonoscopy because it was time again. That's what the letter from her health plan said. She wasn't having any issues, but she followed the recommendation. The prep hit her hard. She was up all night, dizzy. She fell in the bathroom and fractured her wrist. The test itself showed a benign polyp, but the fallout lasted months. She told me later, it wasn't the polyp that hurt me, it was everything around it. And I'll be honest, I felt that same pressure. That sense that if you don't say yes to the test, you're being careless. That fear of missing something. But here's the truth I've come to learn. A clean test history and no symptoms means something too. It means your body might not need that level of disruption right now. There are also safer, simpler options available today. Non-invasive stool tests, for example, that can detect early warning signs without putting your whole system through stress. But most women aren't told that. We're just sent the reminder card in the mail, like it's a subscription we can't cancel. So, ask yourself, is this test likely to change anything about how I feel? Or is it just checking a box? And if you've already had clean colonoscopies in your 50s or early 60s, it's perfectly okay to ask, do I still need this? That's not being irresponsible. That's being wise. Sometimes, saying no to a test isn't about ignoring your health. It's about protecting it. Coming up next, we'll explore a heart test that sounds like a smart precaution, but could actually be the first step on a path you never wanted to walk. Don't miss it. 4. The stress test that stresses you too much. There's something about the heart that makes us extra cautious. It's not just another organ. It's the rhythm of our lives, the keeper of joy, sorrow, love, and loss. So when a doctor suggests a heart stress test, especially after 60, it feels almost irresponsible to say no. But let's look closer at what this test really does. A cardiac stress test usually involves walking on a treadmill while your heart rhythm is monitored, or sometimes having a chemical injected that mimics the effects of exercise. The idea is to see how your heart performs under pressure and whether there are signs of hidden blockages or disease. But here's the problem. For women over 60, especially those without symptoms, these tests often tell us less than we think and can lead to far more than we bargained for. You see, as we age, our bodies naturally change. Arteries become stiffer. Our heart rate slows a little. Blood pressure might bounce around more than it used to. None of this automatically means there's a problem. But on a stress test, even minor, normal changes can show up as abnormal. And that's when the spiral begins. An abnormal test leads to a cardiology referral, then an angiogram, maybe a stent, maybe blood thinners, maybe side effects, maybe a hospital stay, all for a heart that never caused a single symptom. I'll never forget Harold. He was 76, strong, still driving, still working in his yard every week. His doctor suggested a stress test at a routine checkup, just to be thorough. Harold had no complaints, no chest pain, no shortness of breath, no fatigue. But the test came back borderline. That led to more testing, and then to a stent. A month later, Harold was back in the hospital with internal bleeding, caused by the blood thinners he now had to take. He told me later, "Before the test, I felt young. After it, I felt fragile." And that's what worries me most. We take women who feel fine, who are living full, active lives, and we plant doubt. We turn just in case into, now you're a patient. And often, the supposed solution creates more risk than the original concern ever did. I've felt that tension too. At my last checkup, my doctor asked, "Want to do a quick EKG just to be safe?" I paused, and for a moment, I felt guilty, like saying no meant I wasn't taking care of myself. But then I remembered something. My body wasn't asking for that test. I wasn't short of breath. I wasn't dizzy. I wasn't tired. I was fine. And sometimes, that's enough. That's the wisdom we often forget after a certain age, that feeling well is a valid measure of health. Now, if you are having symptoms, if you're short of breath when walking, if you feel chest pressure, if something just doesn't feel right, of course, get it checked. You know your body better than anyone else. But if you're not feeling anything out of the ordinary, you may not need to go looking for trouble. Your heart is not a ticking time bomb. It's a living part of you that has already carried you through so much. Coming up next, we'll take a closer look at a final test, one that promises to catch everything, from head to toe, but might just be the biggest trap of all. You'll want to hear this before you say yes to any scan special you see on a flyer. 5. The seduction of the full body scan. It sounds so reassuring, doesn't it? A full body scan, a machine that sees everything inside you, every shadow, every speck, every hidden danger, so you can stay one step ahead of whatever might go wrong. It's sold as peace of mind, but for women over 60, it often brings the opposite. Here's the truth. Full body scans are incredibly powerful tools, but that power comes with a price, especially when it's used without a clear reason. These scans don't just find problems. They also find things that were never going to be problems in the first place. Doctors call them incidental findings. A small cyst, a shadow on the lung, a tiny spot on the liver. Things that may be completely harmless or even common as we age. But once they show up on a screen, they're impossible to ignore. And that's when fear sets in. Let me tell you about Betty. She was 69, recently retired, finally traveling again. At a community health fair, a mobile clinic was offering discounted full body scans. It sounded like a good idea. No pain, just information. The scan showed a small lesion on her kidney. The technician said it was probably nothing, but recommended she follow up. That one word, lesion, haunted her. She saw a specialist, then had a biopsy. The biopsy led to surgery. The lesion was benign, but the surgery left her fatigued, with complications that dragged on for months. She told me, "The scan didn't save my life, it changed it, and not in a good way." And I know that feeling too. A few years ago, someone offered me a preventive health package. It sounded so responsible. I almost signed up, but something held me back. Maybe it was the cost. Maybe it was a quiet voice inside that said, more isn't always better. And now I know it's true, especially in this season of life. Because when you say yes to a full body scan, you're not just getting a picture. You're stepping into a system that often leads from scan to follow-up, to biopsy, to treatment, to anxiety, all for something that may never have hurt you. And the worst part? These scans are rarely covered by insurance. Many women pay hundreds, sometimes thousands, out of pocket, thinking they're buying peace of mind. But what they're really buying is uncertainty and the illusion of control. I'm not saying scans are always bad. If you have symptoms, if something feels off, if you're already being monitored for a condition, then yes, scans can be life-saving. But random, just because scanning, it's a different story. Because health is not just about what a machine sees, it's also about how you feel, how you move, how you live. And no scan can measure the joy of walking without pain, of sleeping peacefully, of laughing with people you love. So before you agree to that next full body scan, ask yourself, is this for peace of mind, or is it fueling fear? Because the most important parts of your health, they're not always visible on a screen. A lesson I learned the hard way. After talking with so many women and walking through my own health journey, there's one lesson that keeps coming back to me, louder and clearer each year. Just because a test is available doesn't mean it's necessary. I used to think that more testing meant more control, that if I caught something early, I'd always be better off. But somewhere along the way, I started to notice a different pattern, one that no one really talks about. I saw friends go in for routine checkups and come out with more fear than they walked in with. I saw women who felt fine start down a medical path that left them feeling fragile, confused, or even regretful. Not because they were careless, but because they trusted a system that doesn't always account for their age, their values, or their lived experience. And I've been there too. I once said yes to a scan I didn't need, just because I didn't want to appear like I was ignoring my health. The results showed something small, harmless. But that didn't stop the follow-ups, or the waiting, or the worry. It took weeks before a specialist finally said, "You didn't need to go through all this." I remember thinking, why didn't anyone say that at the start? That experience changed the way I think about healthcare. It reminded me that the goal isn't just to live longer, it's to live better. With energy, with dignity, with joy. So here's what I'd offer you, woman to woman. If a test makes sense for your body, your story, and your current symptoms, great. But if it's being offered just because you're at that age, you have every right to pause. Ask questions. Take your time. Say, "Let me think about it." And here's something else. How you feel matters. Don't let anyone tell you that your experience is just hormonal or just aging. You know your body better than any lab result. Trust that. Take care of your bones with food and movement. Support your heart with walks and meaningful conversations. Protect your peace by saying no when something doesn't feel right. Because you are not a diagnosis. You are not your chart. You're not a number on a screen. You're a whole person with decades of wisdom, intuition, and strength behind you. And that's worth listening to. If you've made it this far, I want to say something simple, but deeply true. Thank you. Not just for watching, but for caring enough about your own well-being to slow down, to reflect, and to question the noise. That takes courage. That takes wisdom. You see, in a world that often treats aging like a problem to be solved, you've chosen something different. You've chosen awareness over fear, clarity over chaos. And that's powerful. Because the truth is, your health at this stage of life isn't just about checklists and lab results. It's about how you feel when you wake up. It's about your energy, your independence, your peace of mind. It's about being able to go for a walk, cook your favorite meal, laugh with someone you love, or simply rest, without being pulled into worry over something you never felt to begin with. You've earned the right to ask questions, to say no, to trust your gut, to choose the kind of care that honors who you are, not who a chart says you should be. So as you move forward, I hope you carry this with you. You're not behind. You're not missing anything. You're right on time. And your health? It's more than numbers. It's the life you build every single day, with intention, with softness, with strength. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. What part of this video resonated with you the most? Was there a moment that reminded you of something you've experienced? Or maybe something you've been questioning, but didn't have the words for? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Your voice matters here, and your story just might help someone else feel seen. If this video gave you clarity or comfort, consider subscribing or sharing it with another woman who might need to hear this today. That's how we keep this circle of wisdom growing. Thank you again for your time, your heart, and your attention. Until next time, stay wise, stay kind to yourself, and most of all, stay in charge of your story.